2414 is a podcast about finding hope and common ground through casual conversation. Like the friends on the road in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 24, verse 14, we want to walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. Thanks for walking with us.
And that's it. Hey, welcome to 2414, an amateur podcast at best. Couple friends and sometimes other friends having conversation about real life processing, comings and goings, and seeing where Jesus might show up in that and bring life or at least some joy. My name is Dan. Sitting next to me today, a longtime friend of the show, Brenda, formerly Segovia, now officially Schmelling. Yeah.
It is official.
Whoa!
Got
Brenda
my license.
Schmelling.
Yep.
So for the first time ever, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Brenda Schmelling. There it is. And across the table from me and Brenda is Shane the Rock Wilter. Shane, nice to see you.
Oh, good to see you. Here's
your walk-up song.
That's mine.
Wow. Do I have a walk-up song? I prefer like Back in Black by AC/DC.
I'll do this. It's too late.
Not the vibe.
That's happened. Yeah.
That's what it is. You're the air horn guy.
That's the energy I typically bring at Tuesdays at 4 p.m. I'm kind of laser light show guy. Here we go.
And Shane's slowly walking up.
Shane's doing his living sloth impersonation.
Sad trombone following me.
Well, here's what we got in store for you, good listeners, today. We are going to begin with highs and lows. We want to just process real life, and sharing highs and lows it's not just something on the show. We do it as a staff here. We do it at my family. We do it with friends. It's a way to rejoice with those who rejoice and to weep with those who weep, to share things that are worth celebrating, and not in a boastful way, but this is good news and I want to share it, and to share things that are hard. I'm not complaining or I'm not whining. This is just a real grief. So we're going to do highs and lows. We're going to play a round or two of Outburst backed by popular demand, and then we're going to get into the topic at hand today, which is kind of a niche topic, so to speak. Maybe it's the idea of having children in church, and some of the challenges that go with that, and why that's a question. We're going to ask Brenda some interesting questions as she is preparing to bring a child into this world. And this is not going to be theory, but some real life questions that you get to wrestle with, and tears will be shed. Not today. Yeah. You heard it here first, folks.
You never know.
We're going to make Brenda cry before the show's over.
It wouldn't take much.
All right, Shane, why don't you kick us off? Lows and highs, and what's the best meal you've had this week?
Oh, okay. Ooh. Best meal I've had this week.
Or like best thing you've eaten. Maybe it's a Pop-Tart. It doesn't have to be like a meal.
Well, all right. Here we
highs,
go.
Lows, best thing you've eaten this week.
All right. High, low, best things I've eaten this week. All right. Start things off low. I'd say just low, just dealing with people, working in a church, volunteer specifically. Sometimes communication can be hard, and sometimes expectations can be harder. And so kind of dealing with that. And so, people can, let me down sometimes and be rough to work with. But high is Lauren and I rewatched the movie Hot Fuzz last night, and it's one of my favorite movies, and it's been like 10 years since I watched it.
That's one of your favorite movies.
One of them. It's on the top 5.
Is there a quotable line that's appropriate for a podcast?
Man, I have to think. I'm not a quote guy. I'm not a quote. I'm not a quote guy.
No. That's okay. No.
Had Lauren seen that movie before?
I thought she did, but I guess not. Okay. So this was kind of first time watching it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how Charlotte and I watch most movies.
For the first time.
You've seen this. And she's like, no, I haven't. And then halfway through, you're right, I have seen this.
It was that, but then she was like, no part of this was recognizable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz, great movie. Best meal I've eaten in a week. It might have been a week ago today, but Lauren and I made this really cool recipe we found online of spaghetti squash mixed with cream cheese and other goodies in it. Okay. It was really really good, and we ate it and we're like, wow, this is the coolest thing we've made in a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's that.
Cool. Brenda, you want to go next? Lows, highs, best thing you've eaten this week?
Lots of highs this week. So we had a baby shower that church staff here threw for us. So that was awesome. Just feeling all the love from that. and we got a new car. We traded in our truck. So we're just, all these different big things happened this week. So those are all highs. Low is just pregnancy aches and pains that are just a normal thing that I'm learning, but that are not fun. So sleeping is hard, walking is hard. Life is great in that regard. But best thing I've had to eat this week. So I went to a conference in Houston and had Whataburger, which is a local chain there. I, in anticipation, was like looking up the menu, dreaming about it. So
They have like the spicy ketchup?
yes, and I had the spicy ketchup. So that was really, really good. Not that I'm still not a fan of like In-N-Out if Paula Cunha is listening to this podcast, or Culver's or other places, but
Hot takes.
Whataburger is good. And
Talk about the issues today, people.
yeah, the hard things. Yeah. So Whataburger was the best thing this week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
What about you?
Low. So I'm in the middle of a call process. Like a congregation in Montana reached out to me a week ago and said, "We think God might be calling you to come be our pastor here," and so that's been a very disruptive thing, and that's not all bad. So like this is a beautiful church here at St. Luke's. It's a beautiful church there in Montana. So the low is just kind of the distraction, the trying to balance. What does it look like to seek God's will? How do you evaluate what God wants you to do and where you can serve best and what costs kind of justify what things. So that's kind of abstract, but that's been a distracting challenge. High. I've been running more and more, and that feels good. So I'm following my training plan. Very often I will sign up for a race and have all these great intentions, and then life happens and I don't follow through. And then race day comes around and I'm like, this would have been better if I did what I said I was going to do. Oh no. But right now I'm like, yeah, I'm on pace. So I think this week I'm going to run 54 or 56 miles, something like that.
Oh my.
By the end of the week.
Yeah, in these 7 days.
Okay, yeah.
So I'll take 2 days off. So over 5 days of running, I'll run close to 60 miles. So that feels good. Yeah.
Still a little over half than what you'll do in a day.
Yeah. So I'm eating like all I want. So I'm just gorging on food
okay.
most of the day.
Yeah.
So you have to get like a calorie amount.
So yeah, I ate a slice of cake right before this podcast recording that it could have been over a pound.
It was a pretty big. It was a pretty big.
It was a
slice.
significant piece of cake.
But if you're running 10 miles a day, you're like, you can have that slice of cake.
So that feels good. So, but the best thing I've eaten this week, and this is kind of a weird story. When we lived in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, I had a coworker and friend in the congregation named Martha Hatch. And Martha Hatch had some recipe for a chicken dish. So I don't know, Martha or Allison, if you're listening to this, there was like a crock pot dish where it was like boneless, skinless chicken breast, like ranch dressing mix and cream cheese and soup of some sort, and you crock pot it and it's delicious. So we had this recipe. I think we've lost the recipe, so Charlotte has just sort of run with it now. She makes it her own. But we call the dish Martha Hatch chicken. So my kids are like, oh, are we having Martha Hatch chicken tonight? They don't know Martha Hatch at all. No. like Titus was born in Omaha afterwards. Alexis, would have known her, but I think she was probably 2 when we left. But all 3 of my kids love Martha Hatch chicken, and they have no idea who Martha Hatch is. So I need to send an email or card. So if you're in Coeur d'Alene, would you please let Martha know we are still enjoying Martha Hatch chicken at the Weber House?
I love that.
So that was last night. It was a feast.
That sounds like something like a famous recipe in general. Like, that's the Sloppy Joe. That's the Martha Hatch.
Yes.
Did you finish it all, or are there leftovers?
There's a little bit of leftovers. It's because, well, for me, I was running afterwards.
Okay.
So yesterday I didn't run until in the evening. So I had to moderate
how much
I was eating.
All right.
And then I got home and it was like 10 o'clock. I'm like, I got to go to bed now. I can't eat more.
Yeah.
And then lunch was provided today by a coworker, so I didn't get to bring a lunch.
Yay.
So you've got some chicken to look forward to.
So yeah, Martha Hatch chicken when I get home, if they've saved me any. All right, so that's highs and lows. That's question of the day. Before we get into the topic at hand, we are going to play at least one round of Outburst. Brenda, would you pick a card?
Sure. This is the only reason I came on today.
Yep.
Play a game.
Just play a game.
Okay.
Do you want to go with that side that you've seen or sight unseen the other side?
Oh. Also, I don't remember how to play this game.
So let me review the rules.
And go.
So we are going to, once Brenda reveals the category, she will read the category aloud. And I'm going to flip this sand timer that is what, 30 seconds, a minute? We don't know. We've never timed it.
Something in between.
When the timer runs out, we will stop. Our goal, while the sands of time are falling, is to come up with as many things as fulfill the category that we've been given in hopes that we get 10 out of 10.
Okay.
It's sort of a Family Feud top 10 answers on the board. The wrinkles are, we don't think they surveyed anybody. It's just some dude back in the 80s decided, hey, here are 10 things I know about Richard Nixon. So it's like, what was this guy thinking 40 years ago when he listed 10 things associated with this?
And it's us all working together.
It's collaborative.
It's
We are
okay.
literally just
We're outbursting. The game of shame.
Bricks.
Verbal explosion.
So
We have pens and paper to help us remember.
I'm going to go sight unseen and flip to the other side because I don't want to do
All right,
this.
so you're going to read it once.
Okay.
Then I'm going to flip the timer. And then we're going to go. So people playing at home, be safe if you're driving. If you're riding your bicycle, now might be a time to dismount. We would like you to play along. Shout it out. Give us a shout out if we got one. You're like, heck yeah, that's the one. If we miss it, feel free to ridicule. Send your emails to 2414 at somethingpodcast.com.
All right, I'm flipping this.
All right, here we go.
I'm flipping this. Okay, characters on Dallas.
Characters on
Great.
Dallas. Characters
Good
on
game.
Dallas and go.
Mike, Bob,
Probably an Alex.
Jim.
Bill.
Marianne.
This is Dallas. Oh, that the guy's name. Dallas has to be one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's got to be a name, not a place, right? Let's go Austin. Why not?
Cheryl. These are Southerners.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Dale.
Dale.
Luann.
Lou Ann. Betty.
Yep. Shirley.
Shirley.
John.
Characters on Dallas. Danny.
Jerry.
Boy.
Ben.
Jose.
Nice.
Juan. I'm sorry. I'll stop. But the characters on Dallas.
Jessica.
Jessica. These are oil people.
Oh.
Say Cody. Why not?
William.
James. I don't know if we said James.
Oh boy.
Bill.
I'm not.
Rob.
Just saying names.
Chris.
And time. Chris
All right.
made it.
All right.
So, to be honest, I don't think any of us have ever seen an episode of Dallas.
No.
Definitely not.
I do remember when my parents watched it. That was a thing. It was a thing.
You got vague memories of it like, on the screen.
I have memories of like when somebody got shot on Dallas. Maybe it was Dallas.
Oh.
Who shot Dallas? There was like this major cliffhanger of like a main character
Is this like
got
a
shot.
crime show?
It was like a drama. It was like a soap opera on prime time.
Okay.
And it was about an oil company, like oil money.
Okay.
None of that might be true, by the way. But that's what I remember. That's what I think. I'm not lying to you. That's what I think it was.
We'll have to define as well. If there's last names in this card,
we got 0.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Should
I'll
we
take
give
it
a
as a
half
win if
point?
we-
Half
So
point.
Brenda, how many first names do you think we got correct out of 10?
I would say we got. I'm gonna go high. 4 names.
4. That's your bold. Shane. I was gonna say 4 as well.
I'm gonna say if we're doing just first name,
Yeah.
I'll say 2.
Wow.
We're always let down.
Okay.
We are always let
Brenda,
down.
would you read us the honor and do the honor reading? And you can slide it in. There's a little slot, the
okay.
secret decoder.
God.
Super secret.
And
Super
we
secret.
might have to go to the tape to review if we actually said some names. Here we go.
All right. Number 1, JR initials.
I know who that guy looks like. That's the guy I was picturing the whole time.
Of course you do.
I thought his name was Dallas.
Mr. JR.
2 is Bobby.
I said Bob.
Bob.
Okay,
Bob.
1.
That's
We'll take it.
Pam.
No.
Ham.
Nobody said Pam.
Office. Isn't that
Shut up, Shane.
Jock Ewing.
Ewing?
Jock?
Sure.
Ewing.
E-wing.
Jock, but it is Jock.
Nope, nobody said
Okay.
Jock.
5, Miss Ellie.
No.
No Ellie.
6, Cliff Barnes.
Cliff. No.
Said Chris, I think.
No, you
7,
said Chris.
Sue Ellen.
Did
We said Shirley.
Luann and Mary.
Luann.
No, Sue.
Dang it. Number 8, Clayton.
Okay,
No.
they're going with the like the
Oh boy.
little.
9 is Dusty.
We got Bobby. That's the only one so far. Bobby.
And Ray Krebs.
Ray Krebs.
All right.
We got one, which was maybe half. How'd you do at home? Did you get Ray Krebs?
Did you watch Dallas?
Oh, man. That was not good.
No.
Should we do another one?
I'm
Yes.
glad we
Okay.
committed to it.
Glad we committed.
I mean, we very well could have just said we don't know anything.
All right, Shane, pick one.
right.
You can preview that side and then decide if you want to go with the known or the unknown sight unseen.
No, we'll do this. All right.
Okay. Let's read the category, and then I'll flip that after you've clarified.
The category is things you pick.
Things you pick.
Strawberries.
Nose.
Blueberries,
I'm just gonna
blackberries,
say berries too.
blueberries, blackberries,
Oranges.
apples.
Apples.
Just fruit.
cotton.
Cotton.
Groceries. I don't know.
Pick.
Sports teams.
Spouse.
Ooh, yeah.
Where you live.
Let's just say gambling in general.
College.
College.
pick.
Ooh. What can you like pick at?
Menu item.
Scabs.
Scabs.
Ah, gross. All right.
Wounds.
Just rash. Let's name all the chicken pox,
I'm gonna say eyes.
poison
ears,
ivy.
Disease.
ears,
Okay.
boils. No.
Clothes.
Boils. You pick. Coins off the ground.
Corn.
Favorite colors.
Corn.
Corn.
You pick.
Answer. Pick an answer. I don't
You
know.
pick an answer.
Oh, 2 options
Person.
at Panera Bread.
Okay, that's certainly not an answer.
Two.
And time.
2 options
two.
at Panera Bread.
All right,
Yeah.
the pick 2.
That's specific.
All right. Okay. Shane, out of 10, how did we do?
3.
Brenda, you
I'm
said
not-
4
still
last
not-
time. We got 1.
That's true. I'm going to stick with 4.
I think 6.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna read these one at a time. First, a mate.
I said spouse.
Oh, you did. Oh, yeah.
That counts.
Okay.
Cool.
Number 2, a guilty string.
What does
What?
that mean?
I don't know.
Stream.
You're
String?
the oldest one here.
A string?
Yeah, a guilty string.
Is that like pulling like a
Like a-
sweater? Like you like it's guilty and you
Yeah, like-
you shouldn't pull your sweater string?
Oh, hey, I think I'm dyslexic. It says a guitar string.
A guitar string.
Oh.
Oh, you pick a guitar. We did not
Okay,
do
well,
that.
That makes a lot more sense. Okay.
I'm like, we might be saying inappropriate things. We don't know.
No, guitar string.
Okay.
I feel bad I didn't get
That was you, music man.
3, a banjo.
Also
Okay.
music.
Nope.
They're
Shane,
just
what
going
was your
full music.
what's your job again? Okay.
Yeah, whatever. All right. 4, cotton.
Yes, I got 2.
Yeah.
It's not a competition, Brenda, but if
I'm
All right.
This is team, you said.
that's true.
Collaborative.
Yeah, we're
Yep.
at 2.
Yeah.
5,
We
I'm
are
also
at
at 2.
5, your nose.
Yeah, Shane.
Wow.
That's 3.
Yes. Ooh, nobody. I would have given us 3 points if we had gotten this. Number 6, a peck of pickled peppers.
Peter Piper.
Picked a peck of pickled peppers.
A peck of pickled peppers.
Okay.
That's a good one. I like that. All right.
Wow.
Number 7, a silver pattern.
You pick a silver pattern? What is
Somebody
that?
please like
What
tell
does
me
it
what
mean?
that
Is that
means.
maybe
What does it mean to
quilting
pick
thing?
a silver pattern?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if we got this one. A winner.
We said gambling, like sports. Didn't
Yeah.
somebody said no?
That's
Okay.
different. That's different. More specific. All right. Number 9, a pair of 6-packs.
Just picture some
What?
80s show.
I like that you're
How
revealing
is-
it to yourself one at a time.
Yeah, I want to be as surprised as you guys are.
We're all surprised, Shane.
Number 10,
Yeah.
a scab.
Yes.
Woohoo!
So gross. 4.
All right.
Brenda.
I guess.
All
Brenda
right.
got it.
Yes.
And
Scabs got it.
okay,
So,
on
speaking of picking scab,
Children.
children.
All right, so here's the topic at hand, friends. We work at a church, and we think church is important. And we love children. Well, I love children sort of at times. I thought I loved children differently until I had them, and then I was like, oh, I like older. Like kids are more fun to be around. Infants are tough. 0 to, I don't know, 3 hard years. You're going to be fine, Brenda.
Real easy for you. Yeah.
And so as Christians, we think worship is a significant part of our life of faith. And by worship, I mean something like gathering for a service, maybe an hour, maybe up to 2 hours, depending on different traditions. There's usually singing and praying and teaching. There might be sitting still and listening moments. There might be participation moments. And for quite a while, infants, babies, even toddlers, they can't do the things. They can't read, they can't sing, they can't sit still. And then even when they start to be able to do the things, they might not want to. And so that's led a lot of people to make various choices about what it means to raise their children in the faith if they want to raise their children in the faith. And so that ranges everything from they are in there because we're in there. It might mean we don't go as a family because it's not worth the hassle. It might mean we're going to let them decide if and when they want to. It might mean that a congregation provides an alternative experience for people. You can drop your kids off here, then you can have church, as grown-ups without the interruptions. And so we just want to process this. I think we probably each have some different perspectives on this. We probably have some similarities, the three of us, of what we think is important or things that maybe might be worth considering. But this is a complicated, nuanced, messy kind of thing to figure out what's best. And on top of that, I think most parents are tired, and it's hard just to get out of bed and do life sometimes. And I think many parents, especially today, feel a pressure and a judgment from others that you have to be the best parent. And so that might mean your kids behave. It also might mean you do what's best for your children no matter what. You do what other people expect you should be doing with your children. And so that makes it really personal and really vulnerable. And we don't want to we're not judging anybody today. We're not saying people are right or wrong. We just want to kind of slow down and maybe ask some questions and think about this from different angles. So I don't know. That's sort of where we're going. We're going to hear plenty from Brenda, I suppose. But Shane, let me ask you real quick.
Oh.
What was your experience growing up? Because you have Lutheran school teacher in your family, and you went to Lutheran schools.
Yeah.
So you're kind of deep in a certain system.
I am a deep product of the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod.
Yeah.
Born and raised, and the churches I grew up in all were K through 8 with the church attached to it. And so a lot of those families attended the church, and it was just a lot of big families, especially in the Midwest, big families. So a lot of families who attend the church. And
by big, do you mean number of children or extended family, grandma was with you?
Number of children, but I mean, very much so extended family as well, but very much so the nuclear family, whatever that term is, but people in the Midwest have just larger families, they're more children. And with that, there's just, I grew up in kind of more traditional-ish church. So it was very liturgical, very, quiet, paced out, methodical, services. And, a lot of times, kids were kind of whining, talking, whatnot. I will say the kids in the Midwest, not that, I don't know, kids are kids everywhere. I think the kids in the Midwest are very I don't know, they seem more disciplined. Not that they're louder here or anything, but there was more of a stern expectation from everyone that they're you sit, you pay attention, and you families kids weren't allowed to draw in their pew. It was a little more hardcore.
That sounds intense.
Yeah, it was a little more hardcore. So it kind of was a little bit of a judgy ness to it, and especially growing up in it too. As I was a kid growing up, I always thought the kids were annoying. These kids they're making noises. Get them out of here. Just stop whining. I didn't know how kids worked back then, but and it was also kind of one of those churches you almost you can enter in from the back, and so families just kind of might stand in the very back of the church, and kind of I don't know, hold their baby, child, whatever during that. I don't know if that's just kind of
that's
a
helpful.
lot of random thoughts.
I wonder if some of that even severity has led some people to be I hated that. I'm not going to make my kids do that.
Yeah, and I think one of the churches I went to growing up, there was a nursery that was to the left, it was kind of in the middle of the church, but it was like a room to the left of it. So it's like connected kind of, but maybe nursery isn't right, where it's just like a little like play like room.
I've got a story about that from when my daughter was an infant, but I want to hear from Brenda too. So Brenda, what was it like? So you have a maybe a different route to coming as to like church life than Jane did.
Yeah, the few times that we went as a family, or that I went at all when I was younger in a Catholic church, I don't really remember too much. I think kids were just in there. There wasn't like a separate thing offered for them, or even a nursery room. And when I joined the Lutheran Church, that was in high school. And I think because our church was so small, there just weren't that many kids. That the few that there were, we wanted them in the room. Like there was no like, they're distracting, we want them out of here. It's like, we're just so glad there are kids here that we want them in the room. And I'm sure that those parents, like if they were fussy, they needed a diaper change wherever, they can step out. But there wasn't even a specific nursery room in that church either. And even the bathrooms were kind of inconvenient. Like it was kind of to the side of the pews, like you go behind this wall. So you're kind of walking by people to get to them. And that's actually getting you closer to the front of the church. Yeah. So no designated space in those churches growing up. Yeah.
Okay. So I was baptized as a baby, but I don't have a lot of memories as a very small child going to church. We didn't go very frequently, that I remember anyway. And when we did go, I'm picturing myself like in kindergarten or something like that. I'm the middle of three boys. So, and my mom would often go, my dad would often stay home. And I remember us brothers, we'd be fighting and just, flicking each other in the ear and causing general mischief. And so my mom would be in the middle and I would be like the one on the one side because I was a bigger handful and the other two could be trusted more. So they got to sit with each other. So I definitely remember not paying attention and being disruptive, like actively sabotaging the room, not on purpose, but like I didn't care what was happening up there. I just wanted to annoy my brother and get away with as much as I could. So I don't remember other kids being disruptive, but I remember I was disruptive. And that probably wasn't good, but at some point it was worth it for my mom. Like as much as she was probably mad at me, she could have just said, we're done with this. But we kept going.
And were you like most disruptive as like like a toddler or like?
Yeah, I'm picturing like early school? Elementary school. Okay. Yeah. And I have some really potent memories of my own childhood going to church. But I also have a lot of memories as a father. I don't know. Is one of those more interesting to you guys right now?
So memories of you being a father.
Yeah. So I could talk about like as a dad perspective, some interesting things, or I could also talk about like as a kid, some of them. Like so, for example, as a kid, I remember the sermons were so boring, like so boring, and we used to print a bulletin. You get a bulletin, and I remember very vividly. I would look through the whole bulletin, look through the whole service, and I was naive. I didn't realize how much repetition there was. And so I remember week after week, I'd flip through it and I'd see sermon. And I was like, ugh, there's one of those again.
One of those.
Like, just this weekly disappointment of like, maybe not this week. Oh, there is. I never just like assumed there's going to be a sermon. Of course there is. Yeah. It's church. I remember flipping through, maybe this week there won't be. And I remember a midweek Lenten or Advent service and there wasn't a sermon and I was so excited. And then he got up there and he was talking like, this is a thing, but it said homily, which is like code for sermon. And I was like, oh, he snuck it in. Like they snuck it in.
They got you.
Do you two have memories of like how you felt going to church when you were here? So you're saying like, sermon's boring. Do you remember feeling like this is just a thing we do as a family, same as like we all go grocery shopping, we all go to a soccer game? Or were you like, I really wish I had a choice. I don't want to go. I'd rather sleep in. Do you have those memories growing up?
It was a chore for me.
Okay.
I remember having to like wear a sweater with a scratchy tag. Like we had to like wear clothes that didn't fit right. I remember I also kind of a sensitive nose at times, and so I remember the women's perfume overwhelmed me. I couldn't breathe. I'm like it was so much. Like that felt like punishment. I couldn't breathe.
Scratchy sweater.
Yeah, and my mom wanted to talk to all these people. But looking back, I was like, that's so beautiful. She had all these people that not only loved her, but like she loved. Like I remember this one woman, like I'm not sure what the technical word is, but like she had like a hump in her back. Like she was disfigured.
Ooh, yeah.
And it made me uncomfortable as a kid. And my mom like made sure she talked to her every week. And I was like, this is gross. This is weird. And my mom was just loving this person. So like looking back, like it's really, really beautiful. But at the time I was like, they smell, people are gross.
Yeah.
They're all old. It's boring. Kind of when do we get to go home? That was a lot of my memories.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, we went to church every week as a family, and we always had to make sure we'd like dressed up, not like to the nines, but you wear your nicer clothes. And I always like remembered like never like really like loving it. Like I didn't want to. I'd rather be doing anything else. Kind of like I'd rather sleep. I'd rather just play Xbox. Like I don't know. Like there's a lot of other things I'd like rather do. But I just remember but I also remember like, no, I'm going to church too. Like I didn't fight against it. I wasn't like clawing like at the door, like my bed. Like no. Like I still know like no, I have to go to church. Like this is what we do. And we'd always go as a family. We'd always show up like 5 minutes, or like we're always that late family. Like we're walking, and then we're like as we're getting out of the car, we had one of those churches that rings a bell.
Oh yeah.
When the service starts, and so like the service starts, and we were always getting out of our car as the bell was ringing, so we had to take the back way to like sneak into the back pews.
Yeah.
But that was like normal, like for me, just always being late to it. There was just sometimes I think we were early, but you said something like in regards to bulletins. I remember as a kid, like my church had really like cool bulletins. Like they went all out making them look awesome. Like they were big. They were like the nice paper. They were in color, and like it had the full order of service plus like just like it's your guide. Like you can look at this. The entire service has got all the like call and responses, the lyrics,
everything was right there.
Yeah, like everything was in that, and I just always remember looking at it and be like, okay, so we got this. Like, oh, this is a long cert. Like it was always like a countdown. I'd look at the bulletin. I'm like, okay, we got 3 more.
Checking things off.
You're yeah, just like we got 3 more things. Okay, we just have the Apostles' Creed, and then we got the benediction. All right, and like, oh, now they're doing like an announcement at the end. Like, oh, like we'd be done, please.
Going like to a kids program, you're like ticking the songs off. Like how many songs? Oh boy, gonna be here a while.
Yeah, so like it kind of was a chore, but like I didn't fight against it. It was just like, no, I know I have to do this. So I didn't enjoy it per se.
Yeah, I as much as I was complaining earlier, there were I have a few vivid memories of positives as a kid, and they're very kind of tangible. So one was the music, especially. We kind of had like we had a praise band at times, but it was pretty hokey. I mean, it felt like middle-aged women with tambourines because it was middle-aged women with tambourines. Because that's what they were. And these were great, faithful women of God who loved the Lord and wanted to serve the church.
Yeah.
But even as a kid, I was like, we had this kind of beautiful old sanctuary. It looked like a traditional church, very tall ceiling and kind of sacred architecture. And in that space, even as a kid, I was like, we should just do the organ. Like that's where we are. So trying to be cool, especially if we're not.
Like just be true to who you are.
Like as a kid, I remember like the organ was beautiful. I wouldn't have said I like organ music, but it felt otherworldly and it felt true to the space. So my kind of 3 positive ones. One was the organ, just hearing quality music. The other one was the smell of when they extinguished the candles. And maybe it was Pavlovian because that meant church was about over. But during the closing song, they would extinguish the candles, and I don't know if they were wax candles or oil, but
you could smell
wherever you were sitting in the room. The further back it took longer, but that scent would get to you of that kind of the smoke, and that was really beautiful. And then the third memory is communion. Not when I was taking communion, but even as a child, there were moments where we would go and kneel around the altar. They had like a little rail with pads, and so we would go up there for that. So I was participating in this thing, and it was this like holy kind of set apart spot where you didn't run around up there, but we came for this reverent moment. And then 2 other communion things. One is I could smell the wine. Like I remember that smell. Like maybe they take the little tray, like the lid off the tray, and it would smell. But probably my most vivid memory is seeing adults who I looked up to receiving communion. So like my dad didn't always go, and he had a good job, like vice president of some kind of reinsurance company in St. Louis, big corner office, big desk, and he felt like this important person to me, and yet at communion he would kneel and put his hands out and receive the wafer from this boring old pastor like everybody else. And like they were big strong men. Like one of the guys, he was like a professional rugby player. And he would kneel and receive communion. And it's like I didn't know what communion was, but I remember thinking like there's something going on here.
Something different. Yeah.
So that's a positive memory from church.
Yeah. I think to be fair too, I also have positive. It wasn't all just like, oh, I didn't like it, it was boring. But there's a lot of I don't know if it's good or not, but like there's a lot of nostalgia because of that. It was just something so like rooted, ingrained in routine in my life growing up that now when there's like a small absence of it like in my life and I see or hear it again, it's just pure nostalgia. So for the longest time, like my church had like a traditional service and also had a kind of a contemporary version as well, but it leaned into the liturgy parts of it. And there were those like liturgical moments that just like always was like stuck with me, like Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy. It meant nothing to me, but it was like things I could say. I could speak the Apostles' Creed, Nicene Creed, Lord's Prayer by like when I was like 10. Like
probably before that.
Yeah, and like the commandments and everything. And the stuff that like really stuck too was just the traditional service, like liturgy, like this is the feast, the in peace let us pray to. Like I don't think I have perfect pitch, but because like those notes are so ingrained to me, I could sing those notes note for note in the exact key every time because it's so like ingrained in like in me. And I never, like as a kid, I never thought that like, oh, we're singing this again. It was just like common nature, like we're singing "This Is the Feast" every Sunday.
Yeah,
like, and that was just like normal. Like I didn't think it wasn't weird. Nothing was like off-putting. Like in the service to me, the things that were off-putting were the things that like would change. Like we're trying, like my original home church back in Wisconsin, like introduced this new thing where like it's like so we go forth in Christ, and everyone in like the room says together. And I'm like, I remember me and my siblings were like, oh, this is weird. Ew, gross. What are they doing? And I was an adult. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad they're doing that. But it was different for me. It changed it. But I'm so glad for all those consistencies, things that I experienced week after week that just ingrained like my identity in some ways. Like,
I was going to say, I think there's a lot of comfort in things that are familiar. So like that's true for church stuff. Like if you grow up going, and as you get older, I mean, there's people that have, memory issues as they get older and might not remember their name or certain things, but you start to pray with them or start to recite something like the Lord's Prayer and the words come to them and that brings them comfort. It's the same as like you've got your favorite coffee shop that you go to all the time and it's cozy and it's familiar and it makes you happy and there's comfort there and the barista knows your drink order and everything. It's like, this is my routine. This is a place I go. This is a place where they know me. They might expect me. They know I get the same drink every time. So like coffee shops and church, maybe not so different.
But there's a lot of similarity. I'm thinking of that like So I started thinking of Cheers. I've never seen Cheers, but like go to a place where everyone knows your name.
Top
kind
10
of
characters on Cheers.
that's got to be in the outburst, but like that familiarity, like the same thing, like they know your name, they know like your drink, but like they know your name, they know where you're gonna sit, they know like where you work, like there's routines that
and you might bump into the same people that have like, oh, they're the 10 o'clock crowd, like they're always there.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with that information, but like there's a lot of similarities in that. Yeah.
Brenda, as an expecting mother, as a mother of your soon to be born child, not too soon, but soon enough, I'm certain you have too many things to be thinking about already. Just trying to keep yourself healthy, to bring this baby to term, to get your house ready, and frankly, your baby's going to be just kind of dead weight for a while, even when it's born. You have a certain amount of grace period. You don't have to decide a lot of things because it's just going to eat and poop and cry.
Right.
Some of them even sleep, I've been told. But have you and Adam talked about church, or have you thought about what some of the challenges might be to, hey, we're going to bring a child into the world, and I guess I don't want to assume you're going to bring your baby to church, but if you do bring your child to church, have you thought about some of the things that might be difficult about that?
Yeah. Adam and I have not had a like formal, so we're going to bring our child to church. It's just come up in conversation because we both assume, well, yes, our child's going to come to church with us. And one thing that we have started doing is just paying attention to other families and to parents, both here at church and also just everywhere, like the grocery store, and realizing how inconvenient it is to lug a child with you.
Lug is a good word for it, especially those car seats.
All of their
mercy.
gear.
Yeah,
exactly.
The diaper bag.
Who is loud when I like to go in and out quietly, like take up as little room as possible, and that's not going to be a thing when there's a kid.
Yeah. So like just a physical challenge of getting the child and the necessary things around that's I just pause, like that's already a big challenge.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And that's like if things are going well, like just like the physical act of like, we've got to carry somebody else and all their stuff with us. But when we notice somebody having a tantrum, whether it's the kid or the parent, or like, tears and everything, and how hard that is, and we've been on the outside, like been able to just walk past that for years, we're like, that is going to be us pretty soon. And how does it feel when other people are looking at you like, why did you bring your screaming kid to the restaurant? Like now you're disrupting us. And yet you can't live in your home forever. You have to be out in the world. You have to be able to do these things, and your kids have to learn how to be out in the world. You can't shelter them or hide them away so that it doesn't inconvenience other people. Yeah.
So disrupting others is a challenge. And so the physical, moving the thing around, all the stuff, the being a burden to others. I also heard you sort of say the internal tension of feeling the pressure if we can't just stay home. We do want to go out. We realize it's inconvenient, and now I have to figure this out.
Right. And like you were saying earlier, there's so much pressure about the choices that you make as a parent. I mean, we're getting
you're bottle feeding. Oh, you're using that.
Surely you'll be doing this. Surely you wouldn't do that. And it's like, well, that's going to be a personal choice. We may not have even talked about it yet. So we're hearing it now, and our baby isn't even born yet. So I know that that's coming full force when the baby's here. So I'm more sensitive to other parents. I'm like, everybody's going to make a different choice, and it's not always right or wrong. It's just different choices. You make the best choice for your child and your family.
And I hope, by the way, that's one of the things we're going to be able to communicate in this conversation today and the conversations ahead, that I do think there are maybe perspectives and questions and angles that people haven't thought through, in part because they're in a mayhem stage of life, in part because they're not professional church workers who think about these things for hours and hours a day. But that's not to say people are better or worse or failing, but it's to say, hey, have you considered this side of things as somebody who cares about you and has thought a lot about this might be worth considering. So I hope we're able to communicate that and kind of honor what you just said of there's already enough pressure to be perfect, and that's unhealthy.
Yeah. I would hope that no one would hear judgment through this episode of the podcast. Yeah.
So I feel it sound like, from like my perspective of not having a child. Yeah. It just sounds like there's kind of like a lot of, I think, fear, like from yourself, but also like I think other parents. It's just this fear of like judgment and like critique of like what other people think.
Because there might be other kids in the room who are quiet.
Yeah.
So it might be judgment from the old people or the single 19-year-old who's trying to go to church, and your baby's screaming. And I was really tracking with the pastor's message. He got to the punchline and I missed it. Mm-hmm. Like, so I'm not just saying the old people. So it could be a young person who was in that moment, and that can feel judgmental. But also you might look across the room and there's a 32-year-old couple with a baby who's sleeping, and they're smiling and holding hands. And you're covered in vomit and diarrhea.
Who knows when you last showered?
Yeah, exactly. You smell, everybody smells, and everyone's looking at you, and that other couple might be rooting for you, but it sure doesn't look like it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in the moment you're feeling like, it would have been just a lot easier if we just stayed home today. Yeah. Like, why come?
Because your 6-week-old did not get anything out of the service. No. Well, in a certain sense, and that's what we'll kind of explore that in days ahead. But they're not going to be able to tell you anything they got out of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're not taking notes on the sermon.
Yeah,
I don't think that an infant certainly won't remember the details of anything specific. Right. Like,
so you see all the cost, and you see no immediate return, even if conceptually you believe this is building towards something. Mm-hmm. It's hard to see it.
Yes.
And I would also guess for many people, they haven't even thought about those returns. So in my head, I have this whole, the interconnectedness of, how you're raising your infant, building towards who you want them to be, not just as an adult or somebody who can go to church and be quiet someday, but how God is forming his people and what it means that we develop both physically, mentally, spiritually. And a parent may have thought through the lens of, I went to church as a kid. I think it's important. Someday I want them to be able to go to church and sit still. I want them to have faith with God. And if that's sort of the extent of the unpacking and thought process, when they're puking on you and screaming in church and everyone's glaring at you, it's really easy to say, you know what, I'll see you in 7 years. Mm-hmm. And like, that's not dumb or bad, but I mean, I think I would like to make the case that good things can still happen during those years that are actually really, really important. But in light of the obvious and very felt challenges, the wins seem far away and like disconnected, I guess, from your crying 3-month-old. It feels like this has nothing to do with what I actually want for them. Mm-hmm. So let's, I'll see you again in a few years when we're ready to get serious about it. Mm-hmm. Like that, that makes good sense to me. Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I mean, yeah,
that's the end of it. No,
well, I mean, I don't want. We can't cover everything in one episode, and I don't want to kind of argue a case necessarily today, but I do want to just really acknowledge what I think is best for the church at large, and actually for individuals and for families, is really, really hard, and there are very legitimate griefs and pains and challenges that come with it. And the wins are slow and far away, and people aren't dumb or bad if they choose something different. By different, I mean not bringing their kids to church, or if they can't see how something connects. I don't think it's immediately obvious and apparent, even though I do think it's really, really important.
Mm-hmm. I kind of, my brain just kind of went on a rabbit hole.
I love it, Shane.
So I don't know. We're very kind of like it's hard, it's heavy, and it kind of seems like hopeless. Like kind of what we're talking about. So I was kind of thinking, why would you bring your kid, and like what are other things that like parents do regularly that like that they just bring their kid to because that's what you do. And I kind of thought of like dinners, like family feasts, almost like a Thanksgiving dinner. And you can like put, certainly like you, like as a parent, your child, you can like feed and eat your child, and or I don't not eat. Oh my goodness!
Wow, wow, that took a turn.
Eat with your child,
ladies and gentlemen.
Room. Oops. But you could feed and eat with your child in a different room and join everyone after dinner, like at a Thanksgiving feast or something. But it also would be really special, like if your child was at the high top table with your family at this great feast. Your child's not going to remember anything from it. Like certainly won't remember the food. He won't remember the conversation or the camaraderie. But in some ways, like you want your child there.
And the people around the table, like they get to enjoy and like
they get
maybe
to
look
see
at like how the family is growing.
Yeah, exactly. And you get to see like the family and this child growing. And I kind of comparing that to church, like in some ways, like you could disappear for 7 years, but there's people who love you and they care for you and your child and the things happening in your life. Like,
yep. So I would say that's one of the hidden things that we don't often think about when it comes to kids in church is what the absence does to the rest of the community.
Yeah.
The Christian life is one of sacrificial love, and that's not necessarily something we talk about in America a lot or like to think about. We like to think of kind of the blessings and the promises to me, but you read the Gospels and it's die to yourself and live for others, and this is the community that God has placed us in. And so part of that sacrifice might mean, that 19-year-old didn't hear the end of the sermon. But you know what? They heard the sermon last week and the next week, and they've heard 15 years worth of sermons, and they sacrificed that experience for the sake of this kid being loved and welcomed in church. And similar, that family who maybe wants to stay home because their kid's annoying, they might sacrifice their pride and their, external composure of having it all together to bless a room full of people who are afraid the church is dying and there's no more kids and all the young people are disappearing. And that family who comes toting all the bags in, that might be the highlight of somebody else's morning. And so their sacrifice is to show up even when it's hard.
And I'd say if your line of thinking is, I'll come back when it's easier in 7-10 years, I think the longer you're away from anything, the harder it is to come back to, like whether you're taking a break between high school and college and you're like, I'll come back in a few years. It's a little bit harder than if you just kept going. If you have kind of an estranged relationship with a family member, the longer that kind of goes without it being resolved, the harder it is to come back around to have a conversation. And I think the same thing here. It's just going to be easier and easier not to.
And this is everything in life.
Everything.
So,
everything.
How many adults wish they had taken piano lessons as a kid or stuck with it? And, maybe you started at 15. You're like, yeah, but what if I'd started earlier?
Totally.
Or how many adults, in America, at least traditionally, we don't really value other languages. So for me, I got to take French in middle school, which was kind of early. So I took 2 years in middle school and 4 years in high school. So I took 6 years of French and AP French in my senior year. There were just 4 of us. It was 90 minutes a day for only spoke French, like French to French dictionary. And that was incredible. If I'd started in 4th grade, it'd be even better.
Right.
And by the way, that's how our brains work. If you want to learn a second language, other people in other parts of the world aren't just smarter than us.
They just started early.
They just started as infants hearing 6 languages, and so they can learn 6 languages. And that might have been complicated and messy for a while. But the earlier you start a kid learning another language,
the brain can handle that.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Now here, this is my kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but that 18-month-old, soon-to-be bilingual kid can't tell you they're learning both languages. For months and months, they're going to be exposed to this thing that is doing something in them far before they can tell you that it's working.
Yeah.
And that's math, that's literature, that's reading, that's eating,
Music.
That's everything in life. Kids are sponges, and we know this. But for some reason in faith, we say, yeah, but they're not getting anything out of the sermon. Maybe not cognitively the outline of the pastor's message, but the experience of seeing mom pray and hearing dad sing and feeling like vibrations in dad's chest as he sings.
Or like you said about communion, I've got images here at St. Luke's of dads going up with their children in their arms, and their child can't receive communion yet. And yet they're going up. This is a routine thing, and they get to see dad taking it. Like that's significant for them.
And at 2.5 years old, they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to go, Dad, that was really beautiful. They're going to say, I want to go home. And they're screaming and they want to watch SpongeBob or whatever.
But that's going to be a memory.
But it's in the same way they're learning Spanish. If mom's speaking Spanish at home, it's happening.
I could fully attest to that. Like watching my parents receive communion, serve in the church, singing. Like my parents aren't musical at all. They're amazed when I tune a guitar. Like I haven't played it yet.
Wow, Shane.
Or pick a guitar.
Or pick a guilty string. Yeah. But standing next to my, like in between my mom and my dad, singing the hymns, doing their best to worship. I absorbed that. Like they're singing, I'm gonna sing. Like it's just stuff that just sticks with you.
Yeah. So we're going to keep exploring this in the weeks ahead and talking about maybe some of the specific challenges and specific, maybe not best practices, but just some things that people can try, sort of more tools in the tool belt. Also, I hope listeners that hopefully this is a helpful conversation for you, even if you don't have kids, even if you never had kids, maybe you wanted kids, maybe you didn't, but if you're part of a church or a community, what does it look like to name these challenges, to see what other people are struggling with, to love them in that? If you are somebody who is expecting a child or you have a child, I hope this is encouraging to you, not just to make the right choice and go to church, but I hope it's encouraging that you're not alone. Like it's hard. You're also not. You're not the first person to have to face these things. There are people who are around you. Brenda, I'll say this as one last piece of unsolicited advice today is I remember when we had our first child, a lot of people tried to be encouraging, but it was so long ago that their encouragement was very unhelpful. They're like, oh, well, we all got through it. Like very dismissive, like whatever we were going through, like I just wanted to cry and yell. And they're like, yeah, babies are hard. We all did it. And it was like, you're saying the right words, like you have sympathy, but you're undercutting my experience right now. So if you're somebody who's listening at home with a child or going to have a child, this is not abstract stuff for us. Like you're not alone. It's hard. Your church probably loves you and your church probably has no idea how to love you well. So like your sacrifice might be to say, hey, I don't know what I need from you, but this isn't helpful. Like the sacrificial awkwardness of showing up to a conversation to say, I need support and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say just for any listeners who, I don't know, haven't been a parent yet, haven't like raised a child or know nothing of that world like myself. Yeah. When you experience kids being fussy, annoying, dropping things, crying, whatever they might be doing in the service, I think it's just a good practice to just keep in the back of your head. Sometimes there is nothing you could do. It's in the middle of a sermon. You're not going to walk 12 pews over and say, they're there. It's all right. But certainly you can always be praying and
not just praying for the kid to shut up.
Yes.
God, give that mom peace right now. Help her know that she's loved.
Yes.
Pray that.
Please pray for the parents. Like pray for the parents' guidance and like the Lord's blessing in this child's life. Yeah. Like, there's some things that just are beyond your control, but you can talk to God about it.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the rest of the conversation because I think there's so much more that we can talk about. So I hope that it's continued with the people that are listening and watching it, but just future episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a total random thought. I know we were like landing, but you asked earlier, Shane, like what else do we do that we drag our kids to or whatever? And like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's inappropriate or unhelpful. Like I was at a comedy show last week up in Seattle. I was like, why would you bring your baby to a comedy show? Like it was a Friday
Or
night.
a reggae festival.
Yeah, it was like this. It was like this late
Happened.
night thing, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And like, but one positive weird one for me is I remember my dad taking me to St. Louis Cardinals games growing up, and it was so boring. Like I grew up playing ice hockey, which was fast and exciting, and it was so hot. Like summer in St. Louis is awful.
melting in the
Yeah, we're
chair.
just like sticky, and like other people's dads are buying them cotton candy. Can I have cotton candy? Like no. When I was your age, we brought pork and beans to the game and opened a can and ate them cold.
Ew.
That's what my
Is that
dad
an
did.
actual quote?
No, yeah, my dad. They would, which is also just a different world. Like as a young boy, he and his friends would take city buses to get downtown, and they'd ride the bus unaccompanied, go to a baseball game, and they'd bring a can of pork and beans, and that was their lunch. But I remember, yeah, I remember like it was just so hot, so gross. I didn't like buy the things I wanted to buy. The game was too slow, and now I'm like, I would love to just go to a baseball game with my dad, or with my kids, or with some of you at least. I don't know. Shane wears the Brewers stuff, and it gets annoying. But like that as a child, it was boring. And you know what? Every game you go to, they sing the national anthem. They sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." It's the same food.
There's
you stand up for
9
these.
innings.
Yeah, it just keeps going. Like this is hours. That was before the pitch clock. But now like. I'm so thankful I got to go to those baseball games, and now I watch them at home with my kids, or we go to a game when we can. So that's just another example of, comedy show, probably not. Baseball game, like, bring your kids.
Yeah.
Go do it. If you want them to be, love the game, and I don't know. So we do this in much of life. We bring our kids to what's important to us. And so I guess that's one question for you is what's important? What do you want for your kid? What do you want for your family? We can want different things. That's okay. We can get to the same spot in different ways too. But in the weeks ahead, we're gonna kind of dig into some conversation of some of the things that we see here in our congregation, our own lives. We're gonna tell Brenda all the things she should do, and 6 months from now, she's gonna. I don't know. It'd be interesting. Brenda's like a live experiment.
Yes. Follow along.
Like it's not. You should start a blog. Baby goes to church. Baby Schmelling goes to
one.
church. Week 1, we all cried most of the way through church.
We all did. Can you imagine Adam just?
Yes.
So Brenda's new best-selling blog. Stay tuned. Babyschmelling.com. And it's not a thing. All right, Shane, do you have any outro music for us or final thoughts?
No, I think we covered a lot. We'll save all the rest of the juicy conversation for later.
All right, we'll see you next time, friends. Brenda, thanks for being here. Good listeners, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep the conversation going. Woo.
That's the end of the episode, but we want to continue the conversation. Continue the conversation by sharing this episode, subscribing, or leaving a review. Connect with us on Instagram at 2414podcast. Connect with us through email at 2414@stlukes-church.com. Or best of all, keep the conversation going by inviting someone to process with you so that you can each walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. If you happen to be in the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington, stop by on a Sunday morning and say hi. 2414 is a podcast produced by St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Federal Way, Washington. To find more content, discover upcoming opportunities to connect in person, or to support the show, head on over to stlukes-church.com. Thanks for walking with us.